Hey everybody, it's Joe from Gadgetry Tech, and this is a super fun video for me. I love doing this type of thing because I get to talk about a lot of different stuff, and this is going to be long if you looked at the playtime, so use the chapters if you only care about particular categories. Now, a lot of this stuff will not have affiliate links because I'll be talking about other stores like Best Buy and Target. So this isn't necessarily just to be like an affiliate farm. I will have some affiliate links in the description below which will support the channel because they use that money to buy a lot of the stuff I'm about to show you. Otherwise, just purchase it however you like. I'm not doing it for that. I just do it because I love talking about this stuff. So the goal of this video is for a few different types of people. You may already have a lot of audio stuff and you're happy with what you have. And maybe because of that, you don't necessarily know what direction you want to go to next. Maybe you're just in this hobby and you like to get new stuff once in a while. Well, hopefully this video kind of helps give you some direction on where to go with a lot of different categories considered. Or maybe you want to get something for someone who's into audio and you don't know where to start. What do you get someone who seems to have a full setup already? So hopefully this gives you some ideas there. Conversely, if you're trying to buy for someone who's not into audio at all and you want to kind of open that door for them, again, hopefully this helps. I will have a pretty wide budget range in mind. I'm not going into the extreme of like thousands of dollars or anything because this is more of like a gift and idea guide. And when you spend that much, you probably should already know what you're looking to buy. However, it's not only including a wide budget, but also new and old. So there's some products I'll be talking about that just came out that I haven't reviewed yet, or maybe some people don't know about it, as well as some legends that have been out for years. Because the thing to keep in mind is good audio is good audio. Doesn't matter how new or old it is, so always remember that. Just because it's new doesn't mean it's better. And don't forget, it's all about the music, the games, the movies. This is just to kind of help, bring that experience to another level. So for record enthusiasts out there, well, the first obvious suggestion is to buy some new records. If they already have a record player, chances are they could be happy with their setup. So music is key at that point. And some of my favorites are Random Access Memories, the 10th anniversary edition. This limited edition press sounds absolutely incredible. It's one of the best sounding records I've ever heard. A little bit more expensive than the regular version, but to me it's worth it. Then you have like Kind of Blue by Miles Davis. You have The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Some of these like classics and to me staples for a record collection that just sound great on a higher end system. On that note, if you're trying to find records, yes, online is a massive resource. Then you have to pay for shipping, of course, sometimes and wait for it to show up. And there's always that risk of the condition, right? Well, if you can, check out for local record stores because there's obviously going to be a big selection there. Just get somewhere that's reputable, that's not overcharging you because some places the prices have gotten extreme. Having said that, one of the hidden gems is Target actually sells records and it's not a massive collection. And once you get past the whole sea of swirly twirly Taylor Swift albums, there are some actual records behind all of her stuff. And there are some good ones there and it's fairly priced. You have a return policy. You can at least see that you're getting one in good condition where the corners aren't beat up. So give that a shot. If you're not in the US or you don't have a Target nearby, then yeah, go back to the web. Then we get something fun called a record clamp. These vary greatly in price. Some of them can be extreme and some of them can be rather affordable. I'd say $20 to $40 is the average for a decent one. It's literally a weight, okay? It's a balanced weight. It has a little hole in the center so you can put it on the spindle in the center of the platter, and it does exactly what it says. It clamps or presses down on the record. This can be addressing a few things. Is it going to magically transform the soundstage of your record and open up these new harmonics you've never heard before? Not really, okay? But some records warp, so just pressing it down can straighten out a record, and that might lead to a better playing experience. No one really buys records for the convenience. Part of it is for the experience. That's why we have displays where we put our records. It's a whole process of taking it out of the sleeve, putting it on, etc. And the clamp is another step in that. So even if you don't get any of the benefits from flattening out a record or the sonic improvements, whatever, just having something extra that's like a fun accessory to customize your system and putting on top could be fun. I'm not selling you on convenience. It's part of the experience because let's face it, that's what a lot of us use records for. And then of course the almighty record brush. This is just a dusting brush. I got this one at Best Buy. This is an AudioQuest brush and they're relatively cheap as well. There's 1,000 options on Amazon. Just make sure you get one that's reputable and of decent quality. And all you do is, run this through your record every now and then before you hit play. It'll keep the dust off. Even if you have a cover that comes off the record player, it can still get dusty, and this helps make sure you get minimal skips. Again, pretty good price point for these. You can go extreme, but it's really not necessary. Or you can consider a phono preamp if you want to spend a little bit more money. These vary greatly in price, from under $100 to thousands of dollars. And some people might have a decent turntable, but it's connected to a Denon amp or some integrated amp that has a really basic phono preamp built in. Those work, but you're adding a little bit of hiss typically. They don't sound as clear. They may have a hum issue. There's all these things where you're kind of like, it's almost like you're bottlenecking the potential of a record player, and upgrading a phono preamp can help. Now, this is mid-tier to me. This is the iFi Zen Phono 3, the newest one. I love the looks of it. Records in analog form have a lot of very low frequencies because of how the cartridge works and how it picks up tracks. So an affordable ultrasonic filter on a phono preamp like this helps get rid of the very low frequencies, which you don't hear, but can damage speakers, especially if you're using a record to listen to on a bookshelf speaker where all of that energy is gone anyway. You're only damaging the speaker, and if anything, you might be taken away from the sonic performance for what you do here. So getting something with a filter like that is greatly beneficial, and this has selectors depending on what cartridge you own. There's different settings you can make. It has a balanced output and an analog output as well, which is really nice. So depending on what your amp setup is, it's a good setup for $250. And then if your records are skipping often, well, the brush might not be enough. You might actually have to clean your records. So that's when you get into a record cleaning system like the Record Doctor from Pangea Audio, which is a wonderful unit. That's what I typically use. It's a wet solution with a vacuum scrubbing system, and that helps a lot. And if that's not getting what you want, there are ultrasonic cleaners out there as well where you actually submerge the record, and there are different price points there. Some of them can be under $200, and I really think that is something to consider. If you have a large record collection that you've used often, you should have some kind of decent cleaner. If you're looking for an affordable wireless solution, well, to me, the Moondrop Space Travel is one of my top picks. It's 25 bucks. It sounds fantastic, often sounding better than a lot of $100 wireless earbuds I've seen and heard. So strongly recommend those. If you don't like the looks of them because they have a unique look, you can get something like the KZ Carol. This is still a nice sounding IEM. It's not too expensive. Ergonomically, it feels great on my ear. I've used these a bit just to kind of give them a run through. I like the shape, I like the design, and they're a little bit more understated. Again, you're sacrificing some of the quality, but it is an option. If you're willing to spend a little bit more, the Moondrop Ultrasonic is an upgrade to the Space Travel. I don't think it's worth 3 times the price, but it is a better setup, and I like that it comes with a rugged case in the box, so it's like a little silicone sleeve for it. There are a ton of good mid-range wireless earbuds, so do some research. I like Moondrop on the wireless side for the budget, and then if you're spending a little bit more, well, you know, you have the AirPod Pros if they're an Apple person, and then I also like the Technics AZ80s. That's what I've been using. They're a little bit thicker, but I really like the sound quality of those. So you have some options, but definitely do some research. Otherwise, these are good starting points on the budget side. Speaking of budget, I have to talk about Koss. Koss is so ridiculously good for the money. They look cheap, they feel cheap, they are cheap, but they don't sound cheap, and that's the magic behind Koss. So I want to start with one of my favorite ones, the KSC75X, which is a drop collab. The reason why I like this one is because it actually has a microphone in it, and the microphone doesn't sound like hot garbage. So if you're looking to game and you plug this into an Xbox or a PlayStation 5 controller, or on a laptop or a mobile device, and you want to use the microphone, it's actually passable. It sounds better than some gaming headsets. The killer thing about the KSC75, these are incredible for FPS gaming as well. If you're looking for like a budget $20 to $25 piece just to travel with, maybe you just want something different than wearing a headset all the time that kind of gets hot, these literally just hook on your ear. They sound insane. A lot of people ask about soundstage and how wide things sound. These are like floating ear speakers. They actually sound like they have a soundstage, and they're not doing it by blasting your ears with treble. The mid-range performance of these are absolutely insane. They're not bass monsters, but I love the mid-range tuning on it. They sound incredible for acoustic music, rock, gaming, you name it. If you want a little bit more bass, well, then you go with the KPH40s or the Porta Pros. Very, very similar sounding headphones. Ergonomically, they're different. So I want to focus more on that. These sound darker and they have more bass than the KSC75. So purely for gaming, even though these are a little bit more money, the KSC75 is the better pick. I personally love using the KPH40s because they basically disappear. This is the stock pad. You can see they're a little bit thinner. The stock pads, they're light, they're thin, they're cheap. They're not crazy comfortable themselves, but the magic happens when you switch them out to the Yaxi pads. And I went with the left and right being a different color. You can order them in different colors online and the prices vary, but it's relatively cheap. Now, I want to show you something funny. Koss somehow made a headphone that can fit an infant just like that. Look how small it is. And then all you do is stretch out this headband. That same design can fit a large human head. Insane. So this is an engineering marvel. I want to give Koss some credit for that. Not only does it shrink down really small, but it even folds. So this is a really cool travel piece. Again, with the Yaxi pads and customization. These are just comfortable and they sound better than $100 gaming headsets, even the Porta Pros and the KPH-40s. So the value is absurd. Whether you're buying it for someone else or for yourself, regardless of what you own, I think everyone should own a pair of Koss, in my opinion. I think they're just fantastic, and it's a fun second grab. Getting into amps and DACs, I want to start with the gaming segment first, and on the budget side, this is the Creative X1. It retails for $50, and you can get it for about $40 sometimes. This thing has microphone support and obviously has volume, and it does work on PlayStation 5. The killer feature with this is for $40, it is low output impedance, so you can also use this with IEMs, which is awesome. But if you plug it into the computer and use the Creative app, you can actually customize the sound of this guy, including a 10-band onboard EQ that you could save to it. So you can plug this into your computer, get it all set up, unplug it, switch it over to your console, obviously the PlayStation when I'm talking about console, and now you have a really customized, awesome sounding DAC for cheap. It does sound better than the controller's output. So a fun little budget pick if you're looking to upgrade your sound quality. If you want to take things a step further and get a nice volume wheel and have a lot more controls, the Creative G8 is just a killer DAC. I reviewed this recently in detail, and what's nice about this is it has optical switching, it has HDMI ARC, so you can connect this to a television and get audio from all sources, not just a console or a game. So if you're watching a movie at night and you don't want other people to hear you, you can use the ARC support of your television and listen to that on any headphone you want. If you're at least within a wired range, it's a fantastic solution. And that same solution also makes it work on Xbox. However, if you want to use the microphone support, then you go over to PlayStation, PC, Mac, etc., and you can do that. It does have 2 USB ports, and this game to voice knob works for fading between both sources. So you do have game to chat mix, which will work on PlayStation if you leverage optical or ARC on top of it for the audio. Wonderful unit. $150, really competitively priced because it's a better version of the G6, the microphone preamp. Sounds fantastic, and again, I cover this if you want to learn more. Now, if you don't need all the extra bells and whistles like scout mode, the onboard EQ, etc., you get the shit Gunner, because this guy's a little bit more expensive. It's a freaking powerhouse. So even if you have very hard to drive headphones, or you're playing around with a lot of negative preamp on custom EQ on PC, you tend to need that extra overhead. This just has insane power output. It sounds fantastic, and you can use this as a traditional headphone amp because it has the standard 1/4 inch output. Microphone preamp is excellent as well. It sounds great, and all of the adjustments for the microphone gain is done via Windows or your PlayStation, so there's no knob for it. Instead, you have a selectable gain of high, medium, and negative gain, or zero gain, positive and negative. Negative for IEM use typically, but I found the potentiometer so good I can leave it in medium or high and still get by with just the regular knob. Now, these modes, when you get into your tone controls, they are different than like bass and treble. You have width and presence, and the width is like a crossfeed feature to expand your soundstage. It kind of bleeds some of the right frequencies into the left, but as a result, it reduces bass a little bit. It can sound incredibly fun, especially if you have a really bassy headphone, you have some bass to spare, play around with that soundstage knob, even just a little bit, like going right about here is just a little bit of the crossfeed. Sounds amazing. The presence will literally boost that vocal and presence region. So if you have a headphone that's not too revealing in that area or an IEM, you can play around with this, and conversely, you can go negative to make it sound a little bit warmer or dark sounding. This is just fantastic. It's feature rich. I reviewed this as well. Has a USB DAC built into it, so just plug and play. And it also auto switches to UAC1, so you can use this on a PlayStation without any problem. This is here because the Gunner borrows that width and presence knob I talked about from the Syn. The Syn also supports a microphone input on it, which a lot of people didn't know. This too is an awesome setup for gaming, but you would get the Syn if you also have speakers, because this has a multi-channel control system on it to kind of adjust the way you hear your center channel versus your surrounds, all with these extra knobs up front. Look into the Syn if that sounds like something that you're interested in. Consider this as more of a very special use case, but it performs really well, and there's really no product out there like it that gives you that kind of analog control over multi-channel, so it's a lot of fun to play with. Now, on the extreme end, you have Burson Audio. This is the Playmate 2. They recently came out with a Playmate 3. They're about $500-$600. This guy uses swappable op amps, which is a lot of fun if you're an audio tinkerer type person. These are the Vivids, the V6s from Burson Audio. This guy also has a microphone input because it's a TRRS. It's a combo jack. The new one also supports that. Now you have a really nice potentiometer. This is a Class A amp. It does run a little bit hot. That's part of what you're paying for. And USB DAC or optical in, and then you have an analog out on the back. You're not going to just become this magical player by switching to something like the Burson Playmate, but again, if you need that extra power, that's when you spend more money on a system like this. Lots of power, but also want microphone support, which I'll get into some mic options after. They make more expensive versions as well that do support the mic, even in the thousands of dollars. This is a fun unit. The only thing I want to warn you about is it's not great for IEMs, because even on low gain, with the volume setting to 1, so it goes from 0 to 1, it's still a little bit louder than I would like for the lowest possible volume setting. So I would consider this if you have bigger headphones or stuff that's a little bit less sensitive, that this will give you the overhead you might be looking for. Now, if you don't need microphone support, thankfully there's a lot of good options out there for amp DACs that have everything else you need built into it. I want to start with this guy, and before I actually do, JDS Labs is also a great brand. I don't have their newer products here, but they're a wonderful company to deal with. They have good customer support and make good stuff. I'll have a link in the description below to check them out. I have their older Atom and it sounds great. It's just a matter of if the price point and style fits what you're looking for. Now I wanted to talk about some new ones as well, because X Duo is coming out with some really fun stuff. This guy is the XQ50 Pro 3, and it looks rather unassuming. It has a 1/4-inch jack and a power button and this little volume wheel, which you can also press in. This is a metal enclosure. It goes for just under $100 or about $100. What's cool about this, the main purpose of this unit, is it is a Bluetooth bridge from your mobile device to these outputs here. So you have, and it's two ways. You can use your phone to connect to this, and it does support lossless. It has LDAC and all that stuff. And then you can power your headphone with it thanks to the built-in amp. Now, in addition to that, this also has a preamp output for your analog. It has coaxial and optical. So you can use this to attach to any existing amp you may already have. Let's say you have a receiver that's 5 to 10 years old and you wanted the convenience of just quickly connecting to it with your phone so you can play music while you walk around the house. Well, instead of buying a whole new amp that has AirPlay and all these other features, you can get something that's affordable like this, or have this at your desk to, again, give you that extra functionality. It does also work as a USB DAC. Now, it likes to be paired to Bluetooth, so even though it works as a USB DAC to connect to a computer like a normal headphone amp, and it's all self-powered by that same USB port, this light will be blinking unless paired to a phone. Now, once you play music from your computer, even if you're not playing anything on your phone or the phone's not connected, this will still work and you get a volume wheel. The screen is super cool. It's a full color screen. And then you have a couple EQ options for like game and movie modes, which will change the sound profile as well. It's a fun little unit. It's built really well, and the Bluetooth performance worked great for me. I wouldn't use it solely as a USB DAC for your computer for headphones, just because that Bluetooth function is kind of different. And to me, it needs to be connected to kind of not be a distraction from what you're trying to use it for as a DAC. Then you have the FiiO K11. Now, I reviewed the standard K11 before. It's a traditional Delta Sigma DAC. It sounds great. It's a little bit bright and revealing, but it's also more affordable. They have a lot of power, between 13 and 1400 milliwatts, so you can power a lot of stuff out there, especially in balance mode. This red one on top is the R2R edition. Fantastic amp DAC. I've been asked to review this, and I will still do some kind of dedicated review on it. This just sounds like a smoother, more refined version of the K11. Standard version. K11 sounds a little bit brighter and more detailed because of how the filters work. This doesn't have that same brightness or edginess. It just sounds a little bit smoother. Depending on what kind of headphone you have, I think it's important to consider. If you have something like a HiFiMan Sandara or Edition XS, then I would go with the R2R version, because that smoothness is an awesome complement to that. Now, as much as I like the FiiO K11 system, the new X Duo XAO2 is an awesome amp. I didn't think this would be as good. It looks pretty unassuming because you have just a basic setup up front. You have the 1/4 inch and then your 4.4 Pentagon or balance connection. This screen is a little bit more basic, but it's a nice screen. It's large enough where it's real easy to see the volume readout. And then again, you have Bluetooth and the signature like X Duo red knob. Again, this whole thing is metal. It's $200 and it has up to 2000 milliwatts of output at 32 ohms if you're in balance mode, and just under 1000 milliwatts or 1 watt at 32 ohms in single-ended mode. So it's a little bit more powerful than the K11, but it's not much more. And I love the size of this thing. It's super robust. The Bluetooth feature is a nice add. So you're not just paying a little bit more for power, you're also getting a couple extra features because again, you can connect your phone to this. It supports LDAC, it supports aptX HD and low latency, which is great. And then you have analog outputs, so you can use this as a DAC preamp to connect to a different amplifier. You have multiple inputs on the back for coaxial and optical. And then of course you can use it as a USB DAC, and there's your Bluetooth antenna. I like that this has a power supply built in. Part of the reason why this is a little bit larger is because the transformer is inside the chassis. It's not replaceable, obviously, like if the FiiO K11 power supply burns out, you just get a new power supply, but typically they don't burn out. And I like that this is all inside because it's just a cleaner look on my desk. I hate dealing with those bricks that sit on the floor. So that is a really fun amp. Both of these guys were sent to me by Shenzhen Audio. So huge thanks to them. I'll have links to their site if you want to check it out. But these are awesome new launches that do something a little bit different. Now, when I did my review on the Audio-Technica and APOS collab for the R70X Refine, I also talked about this special little amp, and this is called the Gremlin. Even the name is crazy. So this guy is 120 bucks. And that comes with matched Ray tubes, 12 AU7 tubes. It's not like a tube output, it is a hybrid setup, so the tubes is considered more on the preamp side. It still uses solid state on the output, and it says it's Class A. It has some good power, but the real magic of this, frankly, is it just sounds awesome. I think that depending on what you have for headphones, particularly, I got the balanced cable for the R70X, so I could use this. This is balanced input and output only. It has no DAC built in, so you need to have a balanced DAC for this to work. Something like this SMSL DAC that I'll talk about in a moment. It's just fun. I wouldn't use this as my only amp DAC solution, but it looks super cool. It lights up in green. It sounds awesome. It's like warm and lush. And it's just really fun for the price. I think it's a stellar value if you're just trying to get something that's different than what you might already have. Now, if you don't need all the frills and bells and whistles or a screen or any of that, well, the Schiit Magna Unity is an awesome amp. Now, this guy is 120 bucks for just the amp side, but my favorite spec, which I strongly recommend a lot of people consider, is to get the DAC upgrade. It brings it to, about 190 bucks. You get a USB-C input, and that's all you need. You can plug this into your computer. It has a 1/4 inch output, adjustable gain, a volume wheel, and an input selector, because on the back of the unit you also have an analog in, and of course you have your RCA output. Power switch is on the back, but not the end of the world. This thing sounds great. If you just want a lot of power without spending a lot of money and still have it sound good, the Schiit products are fantastic. They're very musical, very engaging, but not in like a punishing way. Then you have one of my favorite all-in-ones of the year, and that is the SMSL Raw MDA1. It's just because it's not like the best sounding for the money, but I love the screen and I love the looks. It just looks like a high-end amp DAC, and I'm not oblivious to the fact that people aren't chasing the gear to get the cheapest possible thing they can buy just because. I think people, regardless of how much you spend, you want to feel like you got your money's worth. And what's really nice about this unit is you get a really nice colorful screen. It's a single volume wheel for all the controls, and you have a press button. So some of the controls can be a little bit of a pain to navigate, but you have a 1/4 inch output, you have a balanced output, lots of power. It just looks great. And so I'm biased from that alone. Now, the other reason why I like this one a lot is it has balanced outputs. So if you have something like the Gremlin, now you have a balanced out for a different amp that you may be using. Single-ended outputs, you have a Bluetooth antenna, multiple coaxial and optical inputs, and a remote. And again, just like the X Duo, the power supply is built into it. I frankly just love this thing. It's under $300. It often goes on sale. Again, that was sent to me by Shenzhen Audio, so huge thanks to them. I reviewed this one in the past too, and to me, if you just want a simple all-in-one unit that can power headphones, but also works really well for IEMs, this has just been fantastic for me. It's very, very flexible. Now, what if you need an amp for speakers? Well, again, there's a lot of stuff out there, and I wanted something that was relatively affordable, but unique and fun. And this is the Aurelich B50. Now, this retails for $140. It's an insane amp, and there's a few reasons why. When you look at the chassis, it's rather unassuming. You have a power switch, a volume wheel, and a mode button to change inputs. It also comes with a ridiculous remote control that has tons of stuff, including, you can see EQ presets on the bottom, bass and treble. So you have tone control, input selection, volume, etc. So I love that. Now, this is where it gets even more interesting. because you can use this as a Bluetooth DAC as well. So you can actually bridge audio from your phone to the device. You can even connect this to a headphone. So there's a lot of flexibility on I/O, but you also get speaker outputs because, again, this is designed to be a speaker amp. The wattage isn't insane. The transformer inside is, or the output stage is relatively small. But wattage, when you look at what this is rated for, I can use this, and what I tested this on were some KEF Q150s. Pretty affordable, $300, $400 bookshelf set. And this is enough power to listen to those at a safe volume. You know, it's not going to make them scream and get really loud, but for my everyday volume listening, I was using this a lot because it sips power. Compared to my bigger Class A amps, those things get really hot and they pull a lot of juice out of the wall. This one doesn't, and again, with the volume, it's just nice for listening to every single day. Now, it even has a phono input with the ground pin, so you have your phono preamp. I was talking about record players before. Optical input, a subwoofer output, and it works as a USB DAC. So there are just tons of things you can do with this guy. There's also the ability to customize the sound. You can use the mobile app which is compatible for Android and iOS, and that will allow you to toggle through all your inputs, volumes, and settings to get the most out of it. If you want to take things a step further, and this is why I picked this unit to talk about in this review, there's something called ACP Workbench. It's a $20 program that gives you full parametric EQ, and you can do things to help with room correction and all of that, all on a $140 amp for speakers. That is a fantastic deal. So I like that you can tinker with it. Usually you don't get those kind of adjustments until you purchase much more expensive gear. So if you're looking for an affordable solution for small speakers, maybe you're building your own 2-channel setup, this is a great unit to consider. Now let's say you want a portable amp DAC, something that doesn't tether you to the desk, whether you're walking around to the house or out and about. There are a lot of good options out there as well. And there's a new one from XDuo called the XD05T. This thing is ridiculous, and I've been using it for a while, but I had to show you the unboxing because when you open it and you're greeted by this giant green big ass brick, it's just so cool, and it's hefty. This is not a cheap unit. This is about $500, and it depends on when you're watching this, what it's selling for. This was sent to me by Shenzhen Audio, so huge thanks to them. But what makes this thing special, in addition to the color with the red volume wheel, it's very Christmassy feeling to me. So I'll get into the back, but I want to turn this on real quick. So you'll see this thing light up. You have a little screen here, and that's going to help show you, your filter settings, your input, etc. And on the top of the unit, if you can see that little glow through the vent, that's because this uses 2 mini tubes, and they're Soviet era 1960s tubes that are no longer in production. So this is not like a super high volume unit. Even if it did have an endless amount of tubes, this obviously at this design and price point, you're not gonna see tens of thousands of these things in the market, but it's special. I wouldn't use this to replace anything to be your only DAC you've ever owned. It very well could be, but there are some unique traits to it. So starting with the back, you have your DC and then the barrel input. So this DC input allows you to run and bypass the battery. So if you switch this to external mode, this should die because there's no power there. That way you don't put unnecessary load on the battery because you're charging it at the same time you're using it. So I like that, and then flick it in charge mode to, top your battery back off. You have coaxial and optical input. You have a USB DAC input, aux in and out, and then a balanced in out because you can connect this to a different headphone amp if you wanted to just use this as a DAC. The real magic comes from the sound, but as far as output power, it's like desktop class output performance. It has a lot of power whether you're running balanced mode or single-ended, and you have the 6.3 or quarter-inch, 4.4 Penacon power switch. Turbo is literally just your gain switch. You have a low, medium, high, and then a bass knob, which does more than just lift the bass. It lifts like bass and some mids all the way up to about 1,000 hertz, and the bass lift is over 6 dB down to 20 hertz. So it's a little extreme. It can be fun for lower listening volumes, but I wouldn't use that for everything. Now you have some buttons on the side for like your inputs, your filters. If you're pairing your Bluetooth or play pause, you can use that for interaction. And then you have a little microphone here because this does have a mic built in. It's special because it's a hybrid system. It does use tubes on the output stage, but it's also coupled by solid state transistors. So it's not a super tubey sounding amp DAC. Don't think this is going to give you like the warm ooey gooey stuff that a lot of people love, but it does sound fantastic. It's just a tad brighter, if anything, than most normal systems I hear. Vocal performance is good. It's just smooth. It's fun. I think part of what you're paying for isn't purely the sonic performance, but more or less like how special it looks and feels. It does get a bit hot, and mine was pretty quiet. I didn't have any real issues, but you might have a couple popping sounds when you first turn it on, especially if you're connected to IEMs, but no real hiss problems on my unit, so take that for what you will. No pinging noise either if you're concerned with tubes. They did a pretty good job at containing that. If you don't want all of that stuff, this is coincidental that this is X-Duo. I've had this for about a year and a half, but you can always get something like this. This is the XB2 Balanced. It's literally just a Bluetooth amp DAC, and you have the balanced and single-ended output. High gain switch, again, microphone. Similar idea, but I like these because it's literally you just connect to your phone, you turn up the volume, and that's it. Super simple, and you use your phone as the player. Now you have the Quidel X5K, which feature-wise and sound quality-wise is the best of the three here for the money. This is just over $100. It has full parametric EQ. You can use this on PS5. So yes, that means you can do custom parametric EQ with this little guy connected to a PS5 via the USB connection. And if you set this right using the Bluetooth app, it does support microphone pass-through. So if you have something like a Drop PC38X, you can use that 3.5 millimeter port. That TRRS jack allows you to do both two-way communication, which is really cool. Then the balanced 2.5 millimeter output. The only reason why I don't use this all the time is because I feel like a caveman every time I hold it. It's super weird. The buttons are in a terrible spot ergonomically. I think they were just trying to make it really small. You can see this little clip system here. If they made this like honestly the same exact features, maybe a little power, but somewhere in between or even almost as large as this, it would be easier for my hands, so that's the only thing I can warn you from. This is amazing for IEMs and easy to drive headphones. Doesn't have a ton of power, but it sounds fantastic. So there's some really good options out there in case you just want something that connects to basic USB DAC or Bluetooth for your mobile device. Now phones are great for media consumption, especially when paired with some of those Bluetooth and portable amp DACs I just showed you. However, there are some downsides to it. One is when you use your phone all the time for music, well, it's going to drain the battery faster. And yes, there are portable battery solutions out there, so you could work around that, but that is a valid concern to consider. The other one is all the distractions that come from using your phone as a player because it's connected to work, email, social media, etc. And all those dings and vibrations kind of take away from the experience. Now, thankfully, there's something called a DAP, or digital audio music player. And these guys bypass your phone and all the nonsense that comes with it to give you a pure listening experience. There are a huge variety of options out there, varying in price, features, performance, and style, because you might want to just pick something that's different and unique. So I want to start with this guy. This is the Heidi's AP80 Pro X. It's decent. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I think it's fun, and it has this nice little touchscreen, really small. You get a volume wheel on the side here, and on the bottom you have the 2.5 balanced, 3.5 single-ended, and it's literally just onboard storage. Consider these as like your souped up iPods from, you know, way past when. And because it has the expandable storage with the micro SD, you could put thousands and thousands of songs on here. They do play lossless audio, and it's super clean and compact. This is nice because this is great in your pocket. You can see a very big difference in size, so consider that in mind for how you're going to be using it. In the middle, if you don't want to go with something this small or something this large, there's another company out there called Hibi. They have the R3 and the R4. I love the designs of them. I'm sorry to say I don't have one here for this video, but I probably will eventually because they've definitely piqued my interest. They're affordable Android-based DAPs, and because they're Android-based, you have access to the Google Play Store, which allows you to then add apps like Tidal and Spotify. So not only is it working as a local player, but now you have the option to do streaming as well, which is very handy at home. Now I test audio stuff all of the time, and the device I use the most when I'm not tethered to my desk is the FiiO M23. The reason why I like it so much, and this is a more expensive unit, it's not like you're getting twice the sound quality by upgrading from the Hibi to something like this, but you're getting a larger screen, a brighter screen, a faster processor. It does still sound fantastic. It uses AKM DACs. There's just a lot to love about it. You have this touch slider here for the volume adjustment. You can disable that and just use the buttons if you'd like. Power button, this actually changes color depending on the file type you're playing. Media controls, 3.5 and a 4.4 balanced output. And on the bottom, you have your expandable storage slot, USB to work as a DAC, and then a power input to charge it while you use it or, you know, in between listening sessions. Now this unit is larger, so do keep that in mind. If you're looking for something to put in your pocket, you can tell this is quite a bit thicker than a traditional cell phone, but I just love the performance of it. It feels amazing in my hands. So if you have larger hands, consider that as well. You can see a big difference as far as like ergonomics go for handling it. I absolutely love this thing. Look for DAPs far and in between, and ones like this, the higher end ones, even the Hibby ones, they'll have parametric EQ as well. So if you want to customize the sound, you can really fine tune it. There are other parameters you can change as well, but that's a really awesome option because that helps me kind of understand what I'm listening to when I'm testing stuff as well. So fantastic. Hopefully this helps give you on the right path of, where to look. Now, a lot of people watch my channel because I cover gaming headsets, and there are a lot of good gaming headsets, especially lately. More keep coming out. So I am going to be skipping a lot of gaming headsets. I don't want to cover every single one. That's a whole nother video, but I do want to talk about a few standouts, or at least some to consider for different use cases. The one that is like an easy recommend for me if I just want to suggest a headset to someone that's going to work well as a core headset and not have issues is the HyperX Cloud 3 Wireless. The retail price was a little bit higher, but it's come down to just over $100. The sound tuning on it is incredible for both music and gaming. It's really well balanced. It works for FPS games, has a wonderful microphone, amazing battery life. It's comfortable, it's built well. The wireless performance is great. It just doesn't have a couple of extra bells and whistles like Bluetooth or a game to chat mix. But if you don't need all of that and you just want an everyday daily driver type headset that's reliable and it's going to work, Cloud 3 Wireless is a steal. Then you can go the total different direction and get something that's fully analog. There's no electronics, no batteries, no wireless chip, just a wire. You wear this and you're good to go. This is the Drop PC38X. That's one of the better sounding headsets out there that handles both gaming and music really well. There's no batteries or things, like I said, that are going to fail, so all you have to do is plug it into a combo port. And whether you're using one of the game DACs I talked about earlier, plugging it into a combo port on a computer or your gaming controller, this just works. You have a volume wheel on the side here, flip to mute mic. It's a little bit clampy, but the big thing to consider with this is it's an open back headset, so there's no sound isolation. You're going to hear your environment a lot more if you're trying to block out sound than you go with a closed back. Conversely, if you're in a quiet environment, you turn this up, people are going to hear what you're hearing as well. So if that's not an issue, the byproduct of being an open back is it does sound a little bit wider and more natural, and that's part of why this thing sounds so good for music. If you want to go up another level, this is tuned great. On FPS, I've been really enjoying the MMX 330 Pro from Beyerdynamic. Exact same thing of what I just said regarding the Sennheiser product. What I like about the 330 Pro is it's awesome for FPS gaming. The build quality is great and it handles EQ well. So if you want a little bit more of a bass shelf, but you still like the open back idea by having that open sounding space, if you will, this just takes EQ in case you also listen to a lot of music and you want more bass. The natural tuning of this is great for music, more for like rock and guitar type instruments. You can't go wrong with either. This is just a different design, so I didn't want to rule this out. This is more of an honorable mention. Then you have the Asus ROG Delta 2, just over $200, simultaneous Bluetooth, analog input as a backup to connect to Xbox, but it also comes with a wireless transmitter to work on PC, Mac, PlayStation, you name it. It has a great mic, great battery life, RGB, comes with 2 sets of pads. Crazy comfortable. It does everything that I want a headset to do. I love playing on this headset. The only thing I wish it had is the dedicated game to chat mix. And if you have a smaller head, this is a little bit on the larger, looser side. So if that's an issue, I just want to make sure you're aware. If you need something smaller, look at SteelSeries or Turtle Beach. They tend to fit smaller heads better. Things like the new 700 Gen 3 or the Nova's 7s and 5s. Then you get the Maxwell, which is a legend, and on this type of video I have to talk about it. In case someone out there doesn't know this exists, this is the best sounding wireless headset ever made, and no one's come close to it. It sounds incredible, it's clean, it's detailed, the bass is impactful, the timbre and naturalness of instruments is close to perfect. Long battery life. The Xbox version works on Xbox, PlayStation, PC, and Mac, and Nintendo Switch wirelessly with a single SKU. And on Xbox, it comes with a Dolby Atmos license as well. If you don't need the Xbox version, save yourself $30 and get the other one. But it just sounds incredible. It has 10-band EQ, all the features you really want. Bluetooth is not simultaneous. It is a little heavier and a little bit more uncomfortable. But overall, if you're okay with that, it's been fine for me, and it really is like a league of its own as far as sound quality goes. Now, IEMs are another fun category, and there are so many IEMs to choose from out there. I have a lot more than what's here. I just wanted to give you a high-level overview of things to consider. So why would you consider an IEM? Well, maybe you've just always purchased, multiple sub $100 headsets and you're just not getting the sound quality or durability that you're looking for. Or even headphones at $100 typically don't sound as good as any of these IEMs here. Even the $20 Truth Ear Gate, which has a warm bass shelf, still great mid-range, and the treble's not too punishing. There's no sibilance or sparkle or stuff that like hurts your ears. I love the sound signature of the Gate. If you don't know what sound profile people have for preference, like you're just trying to buy a gift for somebody, something like the Gate, especially if you're on a budget at 20 bucks, is going to give them one of the best sound quality experiences they can get, period. It's just fantastic. Very comfortable, lightweight. You have this clear shell. It's obviously very basic looking with that little plastic cover, but sound quality matters the most, and it is comfortable. If you can spend a little bit more, or if you're into gaming, this has been one of my favorite picks for under $30 right now for gaming. I haven't reviewed this yet, but the timing just worked out where I could include it in this video. This is the TIN Hi-Fi C2 Mech Warrior. It has a lot of bass. This guy has a fat bass shelf that carries into the mids a little bit, but the treble is emphasized enough to where it doesn't sound like congested or thick. It is a blast for FPS gaming and single player or immersive gaming as well. So if you're playing a story mode, and it's not that it's bad for music either, this might be just a little bit too much bass for some people, but man, oh man, it's fun, and it's super clear too, so I was able to pick up on really subtle details. Now, if you spend a little bit more money and go up to $50, give or take, you have something called the Truth Ear and Critical Red. This is the Zero Red. It's fantastic. It has an amazing bass shelf. It even comes with an impedance adapter to give you even more bass if that's what you're chasing. But they sound great. It really does approach like endgame level sound quality on a budget for a lot of people. And I think the finish is really nice too with this like red ribbon behind the acrylic. The only downside with the red is the nozzle's like quite thick. So if you are worried about comfort, or if you've had IEMs in the past that put too much pressure on your ear, maybe that's not the best pick for you. But if that's never been a problem in the past, it comes with a lot of tips in the box, and it just sounds fantastic. If you don't want as much bass, or if you're more FPS focused purely for gaming, the Truth Ear Blue is less bass, more treble. Might be a little bit too forward for some people, but it's a different tune. It's not just a different color. Now, originally I was going to just stop there and leave it at the budget side, but for just over $100, a couple IEMs that I like a lot. I've talked about this in the past. I'm not a fan of the cable. It looks like it was like dated and discolored right out of the box. But the audio performance is fantastic, and this cable still sounds good. It has no microphonics issues, and it's comfortable. But this is the SIMGOT EM6L. It's fantastic for everything. It's great for music. It's great for watching movies. It's my favorite IEM I've used for gaming because not only is it clear, but it's like crystal clear to hear things. Very, very comfortable, super competitive with FPS gaming, and I don't have to spend a lot to enjoy it. So still one of my top picks. Now this guy on the end I grabbed because it's just a fun IEM. This is the Let's Shure S12 Pro, and this is the older one. It's not like their anniversary edition or anything. The cable is like super robust. It's really thick, a little bit heavy. Some people don't like the weight on your ear, but it didn't really bother me. I'm using the memory foam tips. This is a single planar magnetic driver that handles EQ really well. It's a really wide open sounding IEM, super fun to listen to. It's not perfectly neutral or as natural sounding as a couple of others here, but for gaming it's fun, and for music, if you just want something that sounds a little bit more wide, a little bit faster sounding because of the treble, the S12 Pro is a fun pick. You can also go with high-end stuff like the High Senior Mega 5 EST. That's my like endgame IEM right now for under $500. The sky's the limit with IEMs. They really do get up there, but you don't have to spend a lot to get excellent sound. A lot of these beat most gaming headsets I've reviewed in pure sound quality. So IEMs are kind of on another level, but they go in your ear, so it's all personal preference. So perhaps you've been chasing headsets all your life and you've just never been happy with the sound quality, but you just have to have a mic. Well, thankfully there are a ton of microphone solutions out there to turn any audiophile headphone or even IEM into a gaming headset. And this is helpful not only for video games, but if you're working from home and you're doing conference calls, well, now you can have like an end-game audiophile product and still have a good microphone for your work duties. So I want to talk about Antlion first because they have something called the Mod Mic system. There's a lot of versions. There's an analog 3.5 version, there's a USB version, and wireless versions that all work on the same principle. So this is the Sennheiser HD560S. It's a sub $200 wired headphone. It's an open back, and you can see this little magnet system here. Well, with the Antlion system, all I have to do is attach it just like that. And this is the cable that comes with the 560S. So I'm going to lock that in place. And even though it's a little bit more cumbersome because it's a wired headphone, obviously, you can kind of piggyback both cables together. I put this on, and now I have a wired gaming headset, but like a much better version of a lot of products you can typically buy from the gaming brands. So this thing sounds great. And what's cool about this system, because it's just a microphone add-on to the exterior housing of this headphone, you can physically attach that to anything. I've seen people clip them on their shirts, attach them to VR headsets, $2,000 headphones and $100 headphones. So it's extremely versatile. I'll have links in the description below so you can kind of take a look at them all. The microphones sound great too, so that's obviously a huge win. Now, just in case you're wondering how to connect it, well, if you have an Xbox or a PlayStation and you're using a controller, Antlion and other brands make something like this. It combines both your analog microphone signal and your headphone signal into one, so you can plug it into your controller. This is helpful with certain headsets that use 3.5 millimeter and you just don't have an amp DAC to power it. You can plug it in that way. And this combo port works on Mac and PC, provided you have a TRRS jack. Now, if you get the USB version, well, the USB one works on PC and PlayStation and Mac, and the wireless version works on the same few platforms. The USB and wireless versions don't work on Xbox, so if you are looking to add a microphone solution to a headphone like this for Xbox, you have to get the wired version, which is now called the Uni 2. Now, depending on your headphone, you may not need to or may not want to buy something that physically attaches to the outside of the headphone. Maybe the design of the headphone doesn't lend itself to that. Well, depending on how the headphone is terminated, you can use a 3.5 or XLR terminated microphone setup. This is the ZMF microphone. They actually do make gaming and headset communication mics to work on their headphones. Now, this particular version is the 3.5 TRRS on one end, and it's dual 3.5 on the other. Just like this one, which is the Meze Boom mic. This guy is $80. This is above and below that depending on what your spec is, but they're comparable to each other. I like the ZMF one because of the cable. I think it looks awesome. I like the mute switch, kind of giant. There's no volume control on here, but ZMF also makes an XLR version. So even if you buy the more expensive ZMF Caldera and you want to turn that into a gaming headset, well, ZMF has you covered there. And so does Odyssey. Odyssey actually makes one as well because of the LCD GX. So the Meze Audio one is a really clean, lightweight, simple solution. I love this particular part. The switch is very tactile. You have a volume wheel to adjust, which is convenient, but just make sure that that's turned all the way up in case you're using something else to control your volume. And again, dual 3.5. This connects on Meze headphones. It'll connect on some Focal headphones, Hi-Fi Man, the Aoun AR5000. There's just so many models. If you see dual 3.5 terminated or XLR, chances are you can add a microphone system like this. And this is really handy if you only have one or two headphones and you don't want to use an Antlion system to move from device to device. It just depends on how it's built, but those are good options. Don't worry, IEM owners, Puppet Joe's got you covered on microphones as well. So if you have IEMs and you want to add a mic, you can do that too, because there are multiple systems as well. Now, Antlion, the same company behind the Mod Mic system, also makes something called the Kimura mic, and there are a few variants of it. They actually have two sets that come with an IEM as well, for a little bit more than the microphone system would have been separately. And you can see how this works. Now, their Duo system and Solo system, they use an MMCX connector. That's one of the two choices you can configure. So because that's what they went with, this is the one I wanted to show you. You have a boom that goes on the right ear. Pretty straightforward, right? You have a dual 3.5 on the other end for both your audio and mic. And when you remember me talking about that, combo port, I can just plug it in. And again, I can use this on a PlayStation or Xbox, no problem, or plug it into one of those DACs I showed you earlier. Now, if you don't need IEMs, you just want to buy the microphone system, they of course sell it separately. For $60, you can get a 2-pin variant or the MMCX. Again, it's still called the Kimura. I'll have a link in the description below. And just like the other one, you have their dual connection. Now, these cables are a little bit longer. They have some microphonics. I'm not a huge fan of the wire, but the microphone system sounds good. So it is still a good option to consider. Now, funny enough, Kinera makes a microphone system called the Grammar, I wish they called it Gamer, that has the opposite problem of the Kimura. It has a fantastic looking cable. It feels great. There aren't any real microphonics issues. I like a lot of what this brings to the table, and it's $5 less than the Kimura. So I think a lot of people will just see that and assume that this is the better pick. The problem is I've seen some reviews of it not working well over time and the microphone just not sounding as great. If you don't care about how you sound, you just want a mic to work so your friends can hear you, then I still like this. I think it looks great. Mine works fine. I have no like reliability issues or anything. Even comes with the optional tip to turn it into a balanced output, because this microphone system is detachable, which is pretty slick. So if you don't need the mic, you can just leave it unhooked and use it as a standard IEM cable, even if you're running in balance. Nice little system, just depends on what your priorities are. Now you have the obvious solution of just buying a dedicated mic. I know this seems obvious to a lot of people, but it is something to consider if you're trying to do like your end game audio setup and you're playing at your desk often. This is the Rode PodMic USB. I like this one because it can work as XLR or use the built-in USB if you don't have an XLR interface initially. So it kind of grows with you, and then I'm using their boom. This sounds great. It's obviously overkill for some, and it does take up a lot of space in your desk or on your desk. This is something that's really fun. Now this is the Saramonic Blink 500 B2 Plus. I've reviewed this in the past. It's a magnetic attached wireless lav system that happens to work in real time on both PC and PlayStation. So if you like the idea of IEMs or headphones and you don't want a physical mic attached in any way, you can just clip this on, plug it into the front of your console or PC, and use that as a mic as well. And because this has two different microphones in the box, you can even alternate if one of them ever dies. So there are a lot of different creative ways you can add a mic to your system. I just wanted to cover some of the obvious ones. So let's say you or the person you're shopping for has a lot of different headphones and you don't know where to go and what to get them. Well, Dakoni came out with a really cool system called the Ensemble system. And what it basically is a pigtail system for a variety of headphones. They have 3.5 millimeter, they have mini XLRs, such as the one that's on the Odyssey LCD XC over there, and they even have the Sennheiser variants for like the 6XO line. There are more variants coming, so you're going to keep seeing that. It's not the cheapest solution out there at a starting price of about $100, but it's pretty cool. And what's really nice about it is you choose your termination or terminations for the end. So this is like your primary cable. You can see this one is a 1/4 inch adapter. On the other end is this like multi-band or TRRRS system, and then you can see the female port on the end of the pigtail going into the headphone. So there's a little slot, and all I have to do is kind of line it up, and once you put that in, it just locks into place, and now I have the cable connected and I'm ready to go. This is super convenient if you're actually listening to a lot of headphones or you have a whole collection of headphones on the wall. Well, you can leave one cable connected to your amp and then have all your headphones ready to go for a really quick switch. Really, really convenient. It sounds great. It looks nice. And if you don't like the Dakoni blue, this like baby blue, you also have a different cable that is like a silver braided version. I think this looks really nice as well. It's really lightweight. I think that's the advantage I noticed with this guy, is it's a little bit more flexible. Both of them aren't really prone to tangling, so you can choose whichever one you like or mix and match. And just to mix it up, this particular one has the 4.4 millimeter. I have quite a few of these. I've been using them a lot for A/B testing lately, and it does save time because once you get used to the whole quick detach system, I really like it. Now, if you don't want to do the pigtail system, you can always just get different cables, and it's not necessarily to improve your sound quality and magically transform the soundstage. A lot of time it's just different length, or you need different terminations. Maybe it only came with a 1/4 inch adapter from HiFiMan and you want to get one with XLR. Well, this particular one is from headphones.com. It's called the Listen More cable. Huge variety in colors and lengths. Then I have a shorter one. This came with the DMS Omega headphone. This one's from Amazon. That's from Yukamu. So maybe consider a different cable. Just make sure that whatever you get is terminated correctly on both sides. And it can be fun just to mix it up. It's like changing shoelaces on a nice pair of shoes. Now, in addition to the Ensemble system, Dakoni also makes pads. That's another thing to consider if you have a lot of headphones, or if you've had headphones that are older and just worn out. You know, Beyerdynamic and Sennheiser pads, for example, once they wear out, you have a pretty big impact on sound quality. So you might want new pads just to restore the like-new sound quality, in which I would recommend going with the OEM pad, the stock pad from the manufacturer, if you can get your hands on it and you want the exact same sound, performance, and comfort that your like-new headphone had. Aftermarket pads exist because sometimes people want more or different. You have Wicked Cushions doing customization for different finishes. This has a cooling gel designed for longer listening sessions. Dakoni has ones that have, leather. It has the velour. They have suede, hybrid materials, etc. Even ZMF sells pads not only for their headphones, but for other headphones as well. They all impact sound quality, the size of the pad, the material, all of that can impact the sound. It can change the bass, it can change the treble, you name it. So a lot of manufacturers are at least including measurements on the site, so just pay attention to that. Don't just blind buy a pad. But one of the advantages of these new pads, especially the aftermarket ones, is they are typically more comfortable in addition to customizing the looks. Now, if you or someone else has a lot of headphones, you have to think about where you're going to put them. And thankfully, there are a lot of good solutions out there. Some people just put them on their desk or back in the box, but I think a lot of people do end up with some kind of a headphone stand. I get asked about these a ton. These are the Rooms audio line. This is the FS Pro Type A. This is the FS-B. And this guy is over $120. It's also very heavy, really thick metal. It's the best headphone stand I've ever used, but it's only available on Thomann Music that I've seen for a distributor. I'll have a link in the description, no affiliates, but because it's a UK or EU location, if you live in the US, just prepared for long ship times and paying a higher shipping amount. But I like it because it's huge, it fits big headphones, heavy, no sharp edges, so no issues there. And also because this is suspending the pads up, you're not prematurely wearing out the pads. Don't get those Omega stands or stands that require your headphones to compress the pad. We just talked about replacing pads. You don't want your headphone stand to be the reason why you're buying new pads prematurely. You're not saving any money at that point, so just go with a higher quality stand like this. Now you have the Type B. The B is cheaper because it's made of wood. It's smaller, it's lighter, but it's still an excellent stand. This design is rather deep, but it's extremely stable, and I can put very heavy headphones on here. This is the LCD XC. Not a lightweight headphone by any means, and it handles it with no issues whatsoever. And because it's in the $60 range, available in different finishes, to me that's a really good bang for your buck. Now, another good bang for your buck is actually a stand from a gaming company called Turtle Beach. It's only $30. This is the HS2, link in the description for that. It's tall, it weighs a full pound, and it's very stable. I can put heavy headphones on here and have no issues whatsoever. And again, my pads aren't prematurely wearing out. Absolutely love this stand. I use it a lot. I actually have more than one of those guys. And then if you have a smaller headset or headphone, something lightweight, and you're on a tight budget, the Newbie stand is still one of my favorite picks. It's only $8, has a TPU top, so it's not going to scratch anything, aluminum plate, and then it has the little silicone feet at the bottom. This is fine for a traditional gaming headset, but I would not put a $1,200 headphone on here that's big. It's going to be a little bit wobbly, and frankly, you should put something a little bit more robust under a headphone that large. Now we talked about headphone modding when it comes to pads and cables, and one of my favorite mods is the strap, the actual comfort on the top. And Capra Audio is an amazing brand for this. It's with a C. I'll have a link in the description for that. But they make something called the Comfort Strap for 20 bucks. It's a 3D printed TPU based strap that fits a variety of headphones. They have them listed by model, and you can always inquire if you don't see what you're looking for. Owners are extremely happy with this. If you have something like the Edition XS, which fits a little loose on your head, and the headband padding, to be fair, is really not that great in the first place, you throw a comfort strap on there and it's like a whole new headphone, and that's why people love it. So plus they have good customer service. I really recommend checking them out if you're just trying to find that missing link and one of your headphones happens to fit what they offer. Now let's say you own a lot of IEMs, or you know someone that has a lot of IEMs and they're all, sprung out throughout their desk and it looks messy and you want to help that person out, or maybe yourself. A jewelry tree is actually an awesome option. It's one of my favorite things to have on the desk, and I've had a few people compliment it when they've come over because it's different. This is from Navaris. It's 30 bucks. This is a metal stand with a wood base, and I bought it on Amazon. So this isn't like the only one you need to buy. Obviously, there are countless jewelry stands and jewelry trees. So make sure you find one that kind of fits what you're looking for. I had certain size requirements in mind, and I love the way this looks. And because of all the hooks, I can kind of display it different ways. There's no like right or wrong way to do this. Now, the only thing I want to note, again, from real world ownership experience, these like memory hooks, if you will, you don't want a heavy IEM hanging like this, because over time, that's going to slowly distort and pull that band down. So I try to hook very close to where the actual IEM is, so the IEM actually gets to rest on the tree a little bit. Just keep that in mind, and once you've done that, you can see my IO Audio Volare, the High Senior Mega 5 EST. Love this IEM, and these are the Zigot and Fresh Reviews Arete. So these are usually the ones I grab the most when I'm playing or listening to music. And I like that it's displayed on a little tree. I just think it looks badass. Now, if you have more IEMs than what can fit on a tree stand, or you don't like that idea, maybe you can consider a watch box. The watch box to me is like been one of the best investments I've made from my IEMs, and I've purchased this one several times. I I like them because it's very easy to stack, and it even fits on a traditional like AV shelf. It keeps the dust out, it presents everything so well, and I just love it. It's just the right amount of space for IEMs and the cable to where you're not like jamming things in, but you're not wasting space either. And because of these pockets, you know, you can put extra tips in there, extra cables, dongles, DACs, whatever it may be. It squeaks because I've been using this a lot, I'm telling you. The other option is you can find a friend who has a propensity of playing with wood in his garage and have him make something nice for you. So shout out to my buddy Mike. Now, storage is great. We all have to deal with that. But the thing we use a lot with IEMs is the cable. And I'm not a person that's going to push snake oil on you and tell you to buy a $600 cable to transform your IEM experience. Even if you have a $6,000 IEM, don't expect miracles from a cable. I believe cables should help more for comfort, durability, and looks. And as long as it's not garbage, it should still sound great. Now, obviously, if you have a really bad cable and you upgrade to a premium one, it should sound better in theory. It just depends on how bad that other wire is. But I like these because they're affordable and they sound great. I have no issues with that. These are the TripAWin cables that I bought on linsole.com. You can get them in several places, but I just like these because they're super lightweight. They look very high quality for how cheap they are. You can get them in a variety of colors and terminations. So you can buy MMCX, you can buy 2-pin. I usually have 2-pin IEMs, so both of these are 2-pin, but this one has the 4.4 Penticon connection on the end of it. And this guy is a 3.5 millimeter. So strongly recommend checking these out. Again, this is more to give you ideas of what to shop for. You don't have to buy this exact one, but you don't have to spend a lot either. So let's talk about tips, just the tips, because they make a big difference on sound quality and comfort. And a lot of people will get different tips because they either want different style or the ones they come with they're not happy with. Some IEMs come with like thinner, cheaper, crinkly tips. Some rely on memory foam, which I have a skin reaction to, so I can't really use memory foam, but I still want a good seal. So what I've had to do is purchase different tips, and this is from Dunu, if I say it correctly. I have a couple boxes here. So let's crack these open so you can see what they look like. And here's some traditional SpinFit or silicone tips that I got on my Truth Ear Zeros. There are things to consider in terms of shape, material, and size. Now the bore size, you can see these are the Clarion tips. These have a larger bore opening and they're designed to kind of boost treble. Like it shifts your sound signature to be a tad brighter. So even the tips can change sound quality. The big reason why I'm showing the tips though is because I wanted to talk about them for a minute, because a lot of people just assume, oh, I'm a medium tip, and they put medium tips on both sides and you start listening. A lot of people have asymmetrical hearing or ear canal sizes. Basically, you have one ear canal that's slightly larger or smaller than the other, and as a result, you don't necessarily have the seal that you actually think you do. So even if you have several tip sizes, don't just assume that your current configuration is the best one. Experiment with different tips to see if the sizing changes it. Now, I got the Dunu tips, these SNS tips, because of that like square edge. These things, if I have IEMs that just aren't creating a seal, I feel like I'm missing a lot of bass. I throw these SNS tips on there and it's like game changer for me. It really drastically improves the sound quality for a lot of IEMs, whereas other ones, the traditional round silicone tips have been totally fine. There are SpinFits, there are people who've made videos just on dozens of different tips, so do some research. And then I like the Clarions. I had to keep one that was unopened because it was easier to present. But I like the Clarions because there are some IEMs that sound great, but they're almost too bass boosted, and you can roll the tips, and now all of a sudden you have an IEM that's even better, and you're not sacrificing the other things you might have liked about it. Now, if you don't know what your tip size is, look for packs like this. Dunu sells them the same way, and Clarion, SpinFit. There are variety packs that do small, medium, large, so you can experiment with which ones fit your particular ear. Once you know for sure what fits, and if you are asymmetrical, then you can provide or purchase the correct tips for your ears, and you can kind of hone in down the road. But please, early on in your IEM journey, experiment with tips, experiment with shapes and sizes, and that's going to give you the most of what you're paying for. Let's talk about speakers for your desk. And there are a lot of options, again, that you can pick, and I wanted to use this to kind of show you some important things to shop for so you know what you want, and if certain things are important to you or not. So on the sub $50 side, the Creative Pebble is a super easy pick. It's affordable, it sounds great, doesn't have a ton of bass, don't expect that, but for under 50, the mid-range and treble tuning is nice. They look good on most desks, they're reliable, and just really good bang for your buck. If you are willing to spend a little bit more money, I wanted to showcase two speakers from Edifier that I think are a great value at just over $100 for several reasons. Starting with the M60, it's a smaller speaker enclosure than the MR3, but I think the design is awesome. It's very, very clean and sleek. And if you don't want something too, attention seeking on your desk or too flashy, it's just a really clean setup. There are touch controls that will light up top when the unit's turned on for changing your input and volume. And the real reason why I wanted to show you the M60s is the back, because there are two ways to connect these to your computer. A lot of speakers use an analog connection, 3.5 or RCA. This comes with the 3.5 cable, but it also has a USB DAC built into it, which is wonderful because a lot of onboard motherboards or onboard audio outputs from motherboards typically don't sound that good. So if you're using an analog connection and you have a little bit of a hum or a hiss, it's very likely coming from your motherboard. This bypasses that because it's purely digital in terms of the connection to your computer, and all of the controls are done inside this unit. Another connection to point out on the M60 is how the left and right speakers connect to each other. Now, this is not a traditional speaker wire, so if you want a very long run, the speakers are going far apart, always make sure you check how the speakers connect to each other, because this might be a difficult issue to deal with for extending it. The power supply is built in, which is awesome, so you don't have that brick to deal with. And one of the most important accessories that I think makes the M60 special is the included stand or angled speaker riser, because it's going to point it at your main listening position. High frequencies are incredibly directional, so if you have a speaker that's close to you but pointing straight below your ears, the issue is you're going to lose a lot of those mid-range and higher frequencies, and it's not going to sound as good, as detailed. You won't get the same imaging performance. So this is a huge value add as far as I'm concerned for the M60. Sound quality wise, between these two, this still gets incredibly loud, very, very clear, again, thanks to that USB, but it doesn't have the same bass performance or impact that this guy does. This is a tighter, punchier bass that rolls off closer to like 80 to 100 hertz. Don't expect like super deep bass. Small driver, small enclosure, but it does sound really good for a lot of different music. And it has Bluetooth built in as well. So if you use the Edifier Connects app, you can actually customize some of the settings on this guy. And it's also super convenient if you just want to listen to music from your phone. So really good option, again, especially if you don't want something too big on your desk. Now, if you are willing to go with a little bit larger size and the whole connection with USB isn't an issue, I present the MR3. These guys are available in different colors as well. You can get either of these in white. The black has this like copper center dust cap, and then you have the volume knob. You even have analog out and aux input on the front. Now, these are purely analog speakers. They do not have the ability to connect with USB to your computer. Instead, it uses analog. It also has a TRS balanced input. So if you have a DAC that's balanced, you can get adapters online that will go from a 4.4 Pentacon or dual XLR into dual quarter inch. There's even some topping DACs that have dual quarter inch outputs on the back. So that's an option. It's not going to make it sound magically better, but it's cool. And then you have acoustic tuning. These knobs, if you can see the top here on the unit, let's try to cut the glare so it's easier to read. So you have a frequency cutoff or frequency adjustment below 125 hertz on this upper knob, and it's a plus or minus 6 decibel swing. And then the treble knob is for everything above 10,000 hertz, so you can boost that as well. It's fairly neutral out of the box. The bass is, a little bit stronger and more of a punch, but it's not like super deep bass. So just keep in mind if you're boosting higher frequencies, it might color the sound a bit. Really fun to listen to though. It works well even for hip hop and rap if you are chasing some bass. And the big kicker with this guy is it uses a standard speaker wire to connect to the other speaker. It does come with speaker wire in the box, but if you want to go with something longer or repair your cable down the road, I really like that. And again, it still has the power input or the power supply built into the unit. The last kicker on this guy is it does still have Bluetooth. So even though it's an analog system for your connection to your PC, you can still connect with Bluetooth from your mobile device. With PC, I recommend not using Bluetooth, stick with the analog connection. But again, just because this is more of a simple system compared to the M60, you can still benefit from the wireless to your phone. These sound great. If you are willing to spend more, Edifier makes larger, heavier, more powerful speakers. So do other brands like JBL and Kali. I always want to think of Kali Linux from like the hacker stuff, but you have the Kali LP6 and LP5s, the V2s. You have the JBL 306 and 305s, Mark IIs, and these are all great speakers. They just cost more than this. If you don't want to go this route and you want to deal with separate amps and speakers, you can get a portable amp. You can go with that Arylic amp I talked about before, the B50, and throw a set of KEF Q150s on your desk. The KEF speakers are nice because they're coaxial centric drivers, which means they're very good for near field applications because you don't have to deal with the mid-range and tweeter placement, having a little bit of an off-axis, phase issue or misalignment of imaging, if you will, when those frequencies blend. I like coaxial centric speakers for near field, but these are small enough where it's not too much of an issue. I do want to throw out a higher end setup. I use this at my desk. I use the SVS Prime wireless speakers with the SB1000 Pro subwoofer. If you are open to spending anywhere from like $900 to $1,500, that system sounds insane. They are larger and more expensive. They're not significantly larger than these. I'd say about here if I had to guess. But the subwoofer obviously is going to take up more floor space. The power handling and bass extension of that is insane. But if you live in an apartment or some area that's sharing walls with others that will be disturbed by bass, stick with something like these and you'll still enjoy it. Oh my God, it's time to talk about headphones, and I'm going to do my best to compress this, but I think if you've watched the channel a lot, you probably may already know everything I'm about to say because this is going to be very high level. If you're gifting a headphone for someone, there are so many good options under $500 now. There are some legendary options like the Sennheiser HD6XX, which from drop is only $200, is incredible for mid-range tonality. If you want like an audiophile headphone for someone who's not chasing a lot of bass or a crazy wide soundstage, you can't go wrong with the 6XX from drop or the HD650 or the HD600, which is a little bit less warmth typically, but they're all wonderful. Now, even though the 6XO line and the HD560S are older, Sennheiser is a pretty safe pick in the $200 range. The 560S is a more excited, wider sounding headphone than the 600 in exchange for some timbre and tonality. I think it's a little bit less technical as well, but a lot of people like the 560S's performance for both the bass, the mid-range, and that treble excitement. It's just a more fun listen. I don't find it more comfortable, but if you're doing a mix of music plus gaming, the 560S is still kind of like the reigning champ for FPS gaming on a headphone under $200. Then you have the 490 Pro, which is a really interesting headphone because it's the most expensive one and has the least value as a result. So it comes with two pads. The producing pad produces a lot of bass, more bass than the mixing pad. The mixing pad has a more accurate tonality to it, so it kind of blends the line between the HD600 line and the 560, or HD560, I should say. So the issue is when you switch to the mixing pad, you are getting a better version of the HD560S here, but you're paying double the price, and I don't think it's double the headphone. What you're really paying for is comfort and ergonomics. I love that they use a mini XLR cable. I think it's one of the best looking $500 headphones if you want like a super clean aesthetic. I mean, that just looks fantastic. Very easy to travel with as well. You can get it to come with a case, and the case is really well designed. So I like this one. I don't think it wins purely on value, but it's a super safe pick. Sennheisers typically are. If you want to close back, they have the 620S, which again with the 600 is more like a 560S close back, and it has the same technical performance as that. Very, very comfortable, but also still has a very strong clamp force. The big kicker with the 620S is it has very strong sound isolation. So of all of the headphones here, if you're trying to block out exterior noise, a closeback is going to do that. And this is one of the better closebacks out there for noise isolation. Now let's go the other direction and switch from a closeback dynamic to an open back planar. And this is the HiFiMan Edition XS, which is a very technical, highly resolving, detailed headphone. It's also brighter. It has more treble than any other headphone here. So if you're sensitive to a lot of treble, it may not be your cup of tea, but it is very resolving and it handles EQ really well. So if you want an open back, which means you hear everything around you, this is very open sounding, and you want to play with some EQ, it's a lot of fun to tinker with. Speaking of tinkering, if you're a car person, to me the Edition XS is the equivalent of doing like an LS V8 swap in a Mazda Miata. It may not make sense to a lot of people, but the people who it does make sense to are super excited about the prospects of what that result will be. This is incredibly fun. It punches well above its price range in terms of technical performance, but to me, I think a little EQ goes a long way, and the chassis is better suited towards much larger heads. So if that's an issue for you, something to consider. I mentioned Capra Audio, and that Capra strap really does help. It lifts it up like this, and it makes it even more comfortable to wear. So I would consider Capra with this guy in particular, and that's like really close to end game sound with some EQ for $300. Now the HiFiMan Sandara isn't here because FiiO came out with the FT1 Pro, which is an open back planar for $200 Wonderful sound tuning. It looks great when you look at the design of it. It's super clean. Dual 3.5, so you can add that microphone system I was talking about earlier. I like that one a lot. It just sounds great. It handles EQ relatively well. I think the mid-range tuning is better than the Sundara. So I think the XS and the FT1 Pro are your better planar options under 500 right now. On the note of FiiO, I want to go to the FT1, the standard FT1, which is a closed back, easily one of the best gift options for yourself or someone else at 150, just because it's stunning. It's a closed back done right, and this is why a lot of other closed backs aren't on the table right now, because at $150, it sounds better than a lot of closed backs that are significantly more money. It's very comfortable, it looks good, it comes with a case. It just doesn't feel like you got a $150 headphone. You feel like you bought something worth even more money. And I think that's an important thing to consider from an ownership experience. So super safe pick. This is a worse value. This is the Sony MDR M1. I've reviewed this in the past. I just like this thing because it's so light and plastic feeling. And because it doesn't have these metal screws on it, I can put it on my nightstand. I can travel with it. And I don't feel like I'm going to damage anything. Sound isolation is in between the FT1 Pro and the 620S, so the isolation's okay. A little bit of a bass monster. It has stronger bass and relaxed vocals, so it doesn't have any kind of a nasally pinched shouty sound, but very comfortable listen both physically and with sound. Now on a couple special pieces, I want to talk about the APOS R70X, which I understand you can't buy at the moment. I didn't want to pretend this didn't exist, but the R70X is a super special headphone. It has higher impedance. This is a modded version of the standard R70, which is also 470 ohms. So this does require a little bit more juice to drive. Wonderful headset or headphone for both gaming and music. It has more warmth than a lot of headphones here, but the mid-range tuning is absolutely incredible. It's probably one of my favorite for mid-range compared to the Sennheiser 6XO line, which really says a lot, but then you have a much better imaging presentation. So if you want a mix of that kind of legendary tonality with a little bit of bass warmth and better imaging and soundstage for gaming or just having your music sound more wide, if the R70X comes back in stock, super safe pick. Now the AR5000 is almost the same sounding headphone. The bass is just a little bit tighter, a little bit punchier. Sound staging on this is fantastic. You have these super angled drivers, so it pushes the soundstage forward. This has been my most used open back headphone for gaming lately. The 560S is great, but for $100 more, I think this looks more premium. I like that I can attach that Meze boom mic I was talking about earlier, and it's so much more comfortable to wear. Comfort is such an important thing that I wish more reviewers and people would talk about, because we can all look at specs, but not everyone knows how things feel. This just really hits everything, and it's only $300. To me, it's an excellent value for what you get. Now, on the premium side, this is a little bit more. It has slightly more relaxed mids, so mids are just a little bit pushed back in the mix, but the mid-range is great. It's kind of like a more relaxed version of the R70X, but it's easier to drive, and you have the legendary Meze audio looks and build quality. There's no glue. It's user serviceable. It's just crazy comfortable. It has that insane soft velour pad that is on the producing pad of the 490 Pro that I liked, but with even better tuning. So if you want to feel like a $400 headphone is worth more than what you spent, you know, like the whole ownership and unboxing experience, this is a wonderful gift again for yourself or someone else. It comes with a gorgeous case, cable, and it should last a very long time. So these are all amazing picks. There's plenty of other great picks out there. The Focal Elix is good if you like rock and play a lot of FPS gaming. It's one of those unique ones that does exceptionally well in both, and that's about $500. So do some research, but hopefully this gives you an idea what to look for. Now, as someone who's accumulated a lot of audio gear, and I've done a lot of traveling, and I bring different things with me, bags are super important in how you pack things and even what you bring. So this isn't a plug for Peak Design, but I wanted to talk about a few really fun products or things I've discovered over time. So this is the Peak Design Tech Pouch, and it's $60, and I got it at Best Buy. You can get it in a variety of colors. I personally love this charcoal looking one. But when you open it up, this looks rather unassuming, but look at how much stuff you can fit in here. So I admittedly added a couple extra things for this video just to kind of show you what the potential is. I really like these little pencil holders up top because you can put Apple dongles in there or tiny USB dongles. Extra cables, you have a zipper pouch. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but you can see I have my Koidalix in here, the XP2 balanced, my DAP, and then obviously normally you would have IEMs. I tend to stuff them in these like stretchable pockets here because it keeps them safe from getting scratched. I even put that giant X Duo tube amp in here because it all fits. and it has a little pouch to kind of run it through your backpack, and another zipper pouch on the outside. So, and I keep extra tips and disinfecting wipes in here in case I go to an audio show and someone isn't practicing good hygiene. So that's one of my favorite bags. You can obviously get different sizes and features, but maybe consider a tech pouch like that for your IEM or portable audio gear. It's a lot of fun and it makes things very convenient. Now, this guy is my most used audio product of the year because regardless of what I'm testing, most of the time during the day, if I'm just listening to music, I just use this. This is the Cambridge Audio MXN 10, and it's just such a wonderful network streamer because of its simplicity and its looks, the price, the reliability. It's normally $500. At the time of filming this, it's $400 right now. Obviously, it's going to go back up and down. It's just the nature of sales. But I like this guy for such a simple reason. It works on wireless or Ethernet, but these buttons here to do your presets, you can choose different like network presets, for example, for internet radio. And I have some of my favorites programmed into it. So if I don't want to open up my app, connect to the device, cast, figure out what playlist I want to play, I literally just turn on my amp, I press a button, and it just always works. And sometimes the usability is so much more of value than every other spec and feature that you may not be using all the time. So I like this unit. It hides dust well, it hides fingerprints well. It has multiple outputs on the back. So I have Ethernet, I mentioned that earlier, but I have optical and coaxial output and line output. Power supply is built in. I have these guys from my network. It supports direct casting from like Spotify or Tidal Connect, for example, so I don't have to actually stream with AirPlay or Bluetooth if I don't want to. And it just works. I'm not going to do a whole nother review on this. I have covered it in the past, but I still use it to this day because of the simplicity. So maybe consider something like that gives you music on the go or music when you're at home and you don't want to concentrate on exactly what you're queuing up to listen to. The last thing I want to end with is room treatment. If you are a speaker person, good room treatment and placement of speakers can make a $300 set of speakers sound better than a $1,000 set of speakers in a room that's not been properly set up. Playing with speaker toe, distance off the wall, room treatment to deal with reflections, GIK acoustics, for example, is what I use in this room to absorb reflections in several other rooms. That makes such a big difference. If you clap and you hear like an echo or a reverb, well, your sound's doing the same thing with music, and it really kind of ruins some of the fun and what you paid for. So I may do a whole video on that segment alone, but if you've never done room treatment and your room is noisy, it's not even just for the sound benefits. Sometimes it can lower your heart rate, in my opinion. It sounds less chaotic and stressful in your home. So definitely look into that. I'll have some links for GIK so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. And just like that, you made it to the end of the video. I think we're close to an hour and a half here. It's ridiculous. And I wasn't going to release this video. This is me in the future, by the way, from a post I made on YouTube. Everyone said they wanted to see a long video. If this was too long for you, shoot a comment below and let me know what you think. I was going to reshoot this entire thing, but this project took me almost a week to do. This is just a passion and it's fun. And if you've just been kind of trying to figure out where you want to make your next investment, if you even need to make one, I hope all of these wide categories in a single video kind of helped maybe, give you some ideas or get those creative juices flowing of what your next investment's going to be, whether it's for yourself or for someone else. So thank you so much for watching and for the support. Seriously, the channel's been growing so fast. I can't thank you enough, and I hope you found this helpful. So don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. I'd love to see you in the future videos. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.